those that are political, on these matters, especially the state of the economy, and very importantly, the state of Nigeria's security or insecurity, as it is. Some of those persons were the presiding pastor of Citadel Global Church, Pastor Tunde Bakare, a former politician, actually. He was former vice presidential candidate to Muhammadu Buhari in the days of the CPC, now still a pastor, a lawyer by training, actually. And of course, Bishop Martin Hassan Kuka, the Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese. But we start with what Pastor Tunde Bakare said, in which has been generating ripples, and there has been, rebuttal or response from the presidency as well. Part of what he said was that the Tinubu administration and the man himself should stop playing God. And he said that at his Easter message, where he spoke about the state of the nation. And, he had to talk about nurturing. And he said, where he accused the president of being involved in what he called a motor park brand of politics that has led to legislative rascality and erosion of constitutional governance. In fact, he called the National Assembly, especially the Senate, a rubber stamp. And the Senate have responded. But we'll look into all of that. But we allow you to take a look at part of what Pastor Tunde Bakare said in his Easter message.
Dear Nigerians, the past few months since that admonition in January have shown that those responsible for steering the course of our nation lack the humility and the character this moment demands of leaders. Instead, what we have seen since the beginning of the year is a descent into tyranny and a brazen abuse of power. Those entrusted with power appear determined to destabilize what is left of our political institutions and have committed themselves to obliterating the guardrails of constitutional governance. From the theater of the absurd, staged in Rivers State, with puppets on strings controlled by directors in Abuja, to the dance of shame performed by the National Assembly in their rush to suspend the Constitution and endorse through the back door the usurpation of powers by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, from the Senate shameless bid to silence Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan for demanding that the President of the Nigerian Senate should uphold the moral standard required of that office, to the uncouth outburst of an undistinguished senatorial misfit who tried in vain to silence the distinguished citizens attempting to testify on behalf of Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan. It is clear that our so-called leaders are determined to turn Nigeria into a mafia state. The two main contenders in the ongoing institutional immorality Olympics are the executive and the legislature. It's often said that these two arms of government suffer the worst forms of arrested development because they were the direct victims of the military era. But after 26 years of uninterrupted democracy, one must ask, how much longer before our institutions finally mature? While it is not in dispute that our institutions and constitution are inadequate, it has become obvious that our biggest problems in this nation are the occupiers of these institutions and executors of the Constitution. The quality of leadership in Nigeria has become so repugnant that citizens must declare a state of emergency on governance, demanding that every aspiring public office holder undergo rigorous psychiatric evaluation before seeking election. Fellow citizens, at the center of this political banditry is the motor park brand of politics, nurtured by the old brigade politicians, and in recent times by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Mr. President, it is through your influence that the Nigerian National Assembly has become a haven for legislative rascality. Mr. President, it's under your watch that the National Assembly has become an extension of the executive, grossly violating the principles of separation of powers and rubber stamping the whims and caprices of your office, all while singing the international anthem of psychoviolence on your mandate, we shall stand. Mr. President, thanks to your political machinations, Nigeria is now bedeviled by a captured National Assembly, the most ineffective in its checks and balances role since the start of the Fourth Republic. In 2006, the Fourth National Assembly had the audacity to reject the tenure exemption bid of a city.
Right, that was Pastor Tunde Bakare in his Easter message, where he said the purpose of this address is not to condemn, but to guide, not to blame, but to admonish, not to dismiss ongoing efforts but to stabilize the economy. Such a scathing remarks. We have with us, joining us virtually, somebody who knows the man, Tunde Bakare, and who is involved, in the Nigerian conversation. Ayologun is a comrade, a public and political affairs analyst, and also a human rights activist. Mr. Ologun, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Somebody you know very well gave a Easter message, Tunde Bakare. What do you make, or your impression of the message where he gave these remarks? Such a very critical analysis of the Nigerian state. Your impression?
Well, once again, thank you for having me, and happy Easter to the crew and for everyone watching us. Pastor Tunde Bakare, like you opined, is not just someone I know. Pastor Tunde Bakare is my own pathfinder, is my own leader, and is my own father. Someone that has been a guide for me over the last 20 years or thereabouts. And he didn't disappoint. Just for the purpose of record, what we had at the Easter message is a usual thing. Pastor Tunde Bakare has always had what we call the State of the State address, which I have personally tried to replicate by an organization here in Osun. Pastor Tunde Bakare has not failed to constantly repute the issues that bedevils governance in this country by a State of the State address. And this is just one of it, just like the one he had in January, which he made reference to. And I said he has never disappointed because this is one man that, irrespective of your opinion about him, irrespective of what you feel about him, you cannot take something away from him. And that is the fact that he is one figure that has consistently taken the governance of this nation as a critical issue for him and has always spoken truth to power. And again, what he has done is to speak truth to power. And I'm sure that a lot of Nigerians may not know, but the truth is, you will be shocked if you know the relationship between Pastor Tunde Bakare and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They've had a very pretty close relationship. So this is not about sycophancy. This is not about trying to shield a friend. But this is about trying to speak to governance, trying to speak to the issue of development, and ensuring that we have a nation that we all can be proud of. Away from that, let's leave the messenger and speak to the message. Pastor Tunde Bakare has again re-echoed what consensus Nigerians have been very worried about, which seems to be at the lowest ebb of development and governance in this recent period. And there's no gainsaying, no pretense about it. I don't think we've ever had this bad, that we have the three arms of governance practically captured and enslaved under the caprices of one man. When you talk about the judiciary, they will tell you that, oh, if there's anybody that understands the judiciary and has majority of the judges in his pocket, it is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Wike, who is also a member of his cabinet. When you talk about wizardry in politics, they will tell you, oh, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has an absolute control of the National Assembly. And of course, it's obvious that he does, because whatever his intent and opinion has always been the side that the National Assembly has taken. And then you have that to the fact that he's in firm grip of the presidency. So if you have someone who should be the head of governance and should allow the other hands of government to be functional, and he has practically become the head of the legislature, he has the judiciary in his pocket and is the head of the executive arm of government, then such a country is downfall. And that is why I believe that the response of the National Assembly is born out of foolishness. We do apologies to members of the National Assembly. The man who spoke said it clearly, that he was not saying the things that he said because he wants to apportion blame, that he's saying those things because he needs to call them to order. And then you see a response of a supposed National Assembly coming like that of a toddler that is trying to crawl. How do you respond to such a message for national cohesion, a message for national peace, a message for institutional re-engineering? And then you say that you are not bothered by the frustration of Tunde Bakare. How does that address the issues that he has brought to fore in his State of the State address? What frustration? This is a man that has never had any political appointment apart from the fact that he contested as the vice presidential candidate of the CPC in 2010-2011, which I was gracefully part of. This is one man that does not go camp in hand, begging for contracts in government establishment. This is one man you cannot say has children who are struggling to be staff of NNPC or CBN, or who has benefited from one influence or the other. This is one man that has upheld integrity. So a whole National Assembly, instead of responding to issues of governance, issues of re-engineering of our institution, is talking about not wanting to join in the frustration of a man who is obviously not frustrated. That tells you the lowest ebb of integrity that the National Assembly has fallen into. And it's quite unfortunate. A lot of people feel everything is about politics. Oh, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in their opinion, is the biggest messiah. I even had one Vuvuzela of recent, one-time friend, a comedian, I've forgotten his name now, saying that if Tinubu cannot fix Nigeria, nobody can. How do you godify such a man? Tinubu is just one man who says that I cannot govern Nigeria better, who says that you cannot govern Nigeria. But when you have people who have very low esteem of themselves, who believe in Godfatherism, who believe in godifying human being created by God, and they put them in the place of God, that is what you see. That is the ebb the lowest ebb we are falling into, where we feel that one man should be powerful, apart from the power that the Constitution has unfortunately empowered him with. We are beginning to codify him as a god. And I hope that this does not lead us to a situation of rebellion, which my dear friend and brother Showore will always call evolution.
All right, Mr. Ologun. Pastor Tunde Bakare has accused the current administration of degenerating into tyranny. He has also accused the president of playing motopack politics. But again, in all fairness to those who are in support of President Tinubu's administration, some people will say, oh, he's actually working. You know, recently he dissolved the board of the NNPCL and removed Mele Kyari, replacing him with Bio-Julari. Some people will say he's working. But let us speak to the facts here, Mr. Ologun. The facts are clear. So far, nobody has been brought to book. People are not being held accountable under his administration so far. And I'll give you examples. Okay, let's look at the case of NNPCL, for instance. When he removed Mele Kyari and replaced him with Bio-Julari, just yesterday in Abuja, a group of people, concerned citizens against corruption, they made a protest. They went to the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SCN, and of course, Minister of Justice, requesting a probe of Mele Kyari. If you see these figures, Mr. Ologun, I mean, many reports are, facts are coming up now of how, funds were mismanaged under Mele Kyari, and so far, no one is questioning him. For instance, the NNPCL is indebted, okay, to Matrix Energy Limited, okay, to a tune of over $2 billion. For the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt Refinery. This same project, the Federal Executive Council at some point approved $1.5 billion for the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt Refinery. How come the NNPCL is now indebted to Matrix Energy Limited to the tune of $2 billion? Now they are repaying every day in form of crude allocation to Matrix Energy Limited. And so many other facts have come up. And they are asking, why are people not being brought to book? It is not enough. Is it enough to just remove someone, to just remove Mele Kyari, and he has not been brought to book? And so many other cases I wouldn't want to go into right now. So, Mr. Ologun, are you really concerned that the president is not doing enough? Are you of the opinion that he's actually working but not doing enough? Or what exactly do you think is going on here?
Look, we live in a nation where there is no, I'm trying to find the right words now, where there is no commensurate compensation for either good or bad. And the man cannot give what he does not have. Tinubu over the time, go back in history. I'm not his fan, neither am I his foe. But Tinubu over time, before his ascension to the office of the president of this country, has been irresponsible. Please put that in quote. Irresponsible in accountability. And when you see a man who is not accountable to himself, to his society,
Mr. Ologun, let's mind the use of word. That's Mr. President here. And he's
that's why I said you should put that in quotes. That's why I said you should put that in quotes. You should know that I understand this profession and I'm very mindful of the use of words.
Absolutely.
And I repeat again, put that word irresponsibility, put it in quotes.
Absolutely.
Mr. President, in quotes, has been irresponsible in accountability. Not accountable to himself, not accountable to the community, not accountable to the society, not accountable to the state, not accountable to the country. And I doubt if he will be accountable to God except at death. So when you have such an individual at the end of affair, you don't expect that such a man will uphold the tenet of integrity through accountability. And so I'm not surprised. Neither am I disappointed. I'm just worried that this country is daily nosediving into a free-for-all where anybody can choose to be anything and call himself what have you. I have been part of several rallies, several protests, several calls for removal of high-class people in this country. Some of it I'm still answering. I'm still being invited to answer questions, to defend petitions written 2-3 years ago. At least for the record, I was part of those who called for the removal of the former EFCC chairman. I was also part of those who called for the removal of the SY Director General of Immigration Service and all of that. And I can tell you that what is worrisome is that the mayor, the figures that we unraveled as what was embezzled under individuals, and we made public through even defense of such petitions at the Code of Conduct Bureau, SICPC have lost count. Yet, all that the government do is to remove such individuals from office without probe. So you are simply telling people that you can steal as much as you can. Don't get caught. The moment you get caught, we will simply ask you to step aside without asking that you put that, which in your, even the Yoruba's mythology was even more careful. Yorubas will say, Aniko is Hausa, Aniko datawele. That means we ask a thief to run, he's running. We ask him to drop what he has stolen, he has dropped it. But in Nigeria, we only tell the thief to run, but we don't tell the thief to drop what he has stolen. And that is unfortunate. When I saw that protest yesterday, or that rally, whatever name you want to give it, calling for the probe of the SWAL head of the NNPC, I was happy. But I also know that if we are to go by the history of some of the things that have transpired in high places that some of us have called for probe about, that would just be it. The president will turn the deaf ear. So that's why I said a man cannot give
what he doesn't have.
What he does not have. You judge a man by his records. You judge a man. I've always said this. I don't believe in what you tell me. I don't believe in the facade you bring to me. If I meet you and I need to judge you, I go and check your records. I go and check your antecedents. That convinces me more about whatever you tell me or whatever facade you are bringing about. So if you have a man that have practically escaped justice through all kind of forms, you cannot account for his age, you cannot account for his wealth, you cannot account for even his academics, you cannot even account for his place of birth. How do you expect such a man to all of a sudden wake up and call for accountability by people of same character? But my concern is this: as a nation, we seem to be too docile. Look, we are often not consistent. I've heard people say that, look, let those who want to protest. Let those who want to ask questions. For how long would the same set of people be the one to ask questions, be the same people to protest, be the same people to call for accountability, and age and other things would not set in? We seem to be a nation that is conducive for all kind of pre-frame. We don't ask our leaders to be accountable to us. After that protest of yesterday, maybe one or two others will hold, and that will be the end of it. The petition submitted will grow dust in the file of one director in ICPC every service because people will not come back to ask questions. What has happened to our demands? And that's why I've often said this, that look, it's about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today. There are greater thieves in governance at the local level. Your governors, your commissioners, your local government chairmen, the so-called directors in government agencies and parastatals. They seem to be hiding, putting the entire blame on the office of the president, whereas they are worse in character than even the things that we seem to be talking about.
All right, Mr. Ologun. Rightly said. Away from the mismanagement of funds now and corruption, we're talking about billions of dollars now. And of course, we have Nigerians who can barely feed. Nigerians are hungry. Away from that, let us come down to politics. Pastor Tunde Bakare has accused President Tinubu of degenerating into tyranny. But let's look at this from this angle. Let's look at what is going on in the political space in Nigeria. Right now, we have a lot of politicians, a lot of leaders who are willingly now tilting towards APC. A lot of them are defecting to APC. They are not being forced. So what exactly is happening in Nigeria? What we have now is, it seems as though these leaders, these politicians, they just want to hold on to power at all costs. And they feel the way to achieve that is to join the bandwagon. You know, some people will say, if you cannot beat them, unfortunately, you join them. Are you not worried at the spate of defections to the APC? Simply because some people want to hold on to power, they want to remain relevant, and no one is forcing them. Yeah, Tunde Bakare has accused them of tyranny, but Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not holding a gun to anyone's head. We are seeing people who are voluntarily trying to support him now just because they want to hold on to power or just because of what they want to get out of their own selfish interest. What is your concern in this regard, Mr. Ologun?
My concern is simply the quality of leadership that we are really turning out as a nation. I am a firm believer in evolution of good leadership. Unfortunately, we live in a country where there are no places where content of leadership is taught. Go and do the aggregate yourself, and you will agree with me that between 1999 and now, the same set of politicians have been in circulation. If new ones have emerged through force, maybe less than about 25% of the present crop of leadership, from the local government to the House of Assembly, to governorship, to commissioners, to ministers, to anything you want to call it. It has been a re-engineering or recycling of about 85% of old politicians. Now, let's use the word of Pastor Tunde Bakare. Pastor Tunde Bakare said the motor park brand of politics. What distinguishes the motor park kind of leadership? In motor parks, which I'm sure you are familiar with, is either you are the head or you are nothing. Have you ever heard of the name of the secretary or the vice chairman or the PRO or the account officer of any motor park? No. The only thing you see is the chairman, the chairman, the chairman. And whether the chairman is wrong or right, everybody does twirl to him. Everybody bows at his feet. He decides how money is shared. He decides.
All right. It seems we have issues with connection. We'll try, and reconnect with Mr. Ologun. It's a lot, and one will say, how about the messenger? Let's look at the objectivity in the position of Pastor Tunde Bakare to say, is it because of ideological difference? Is it because of political leanings? Because it was part of the people that collected the 100 million naira form of the APC during the primaries, remember? And I'm not sure he got any vote, at the primary that produced President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There are some persons, say maybe still pain. And it was said before the swearing-in of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where Pastor Bakare said that he would never call President Bola Ahmed Tinubu his president. He said it. And so many persons might want to doubt his objectivity, that this is somebody you are not given to. This is somebody that you said you will never regard as your president. So most likely you will never do anything right in your definition, because I don't like you. Or he hasn't said that really, but he said he will never be my president. If somebody said you will never be my president, there is no way that a person that you have not accepted as your president, your personal view, how that person can really impress you, because you've already built a fence that irrespective of either this person has been sworn in or not, it will never be my president. That's the objectivity. And the National Assembly are responding to their own matter as well. But then we'll try and reconnect to have precept upon precept and to look into these issues. But the objectivity of Pastor Tunde Bakare is a thing.
All right. Talking about the objectivity now, just like Mr. Ologun said. So away from that, yes, We are human beings. He has his own, personal flaws. He has his own opinions. But again, away from that, let us look at the message now. Away from the messenger, just like Mr. Olugun said, let's look at the message now. What is he saying? He's accusing the administration of tyranny. So I'm trying to look at it from that angle.
Right.
What kind of tyranny are we having now? Like I said now, the president is not holding a gun to anybody's head.
He hasn't.
So if he's a strategist and he's able to lobby, to strategize, to scheme and convince people, who should be blamed for that?
That's it.
If the National Assembly today, is acting as a rubber stamp, who should we blame? Because the president, Mr. President, is one man. He is one man. There is so much one man can do. We have the National Assembly, we have the Senate and the House of Reps. How can they, submit themselves to be controlled by one person? So should we blame the president? No. Allegedly. So we should all take responsibility for our actions. If the president is degenerating into tyranny, then what is the function of the National Assembly, of the other institutions? The judiciary as well. So is it that he has bought everyone over? That's the question.
Allegedly.
So that's why I asked, what kind of tyranny are we having? Is it a voluntary one or an involuntary one?
We hope he comes back. But right now, we'll go on this break. The program will continue. Stay with us. It's about the state of your nation and the state of my nation as well. Okay, possibly we'll do that later. A lot to really talk about. And, we allow you to watch the remainder of that particular State of the Nation address given by Pastor Tunde Bakare. Take a look.
In 2010, the 6th National Assembly summoned the courage to stand against a power hijacking cabal and restore Nigeria to the path of constitutionality by invoking the doctrine of necessity. In 2011, the House of Representatives of the 7th National Assembly had the courage to elect its leaders, as did the Senate of the 8th National Assembly in 2015, defying executive interference. This National Assembly, the 10th, has by its unconstitutional endorsement of the president's abuse of powers proven to be the most spineless in our recent history. To the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, under whose brand of politics the institution of legislative oversight is collapsing and our democracy is faced with an existential threat, I say, Mr. President, Nigeria is too delicate for this kind of politics. If this state capture was what you meant by a Milokan, it is an anticlimax that can only be counterproductive at the end. I urge you, Mr. President, to think deeply and reflect on these words. No man is wise enough, nor good enough to be trusted with unlimited power. Mr. President, please stop playing God.
Exactly. Mr. President, stop playing God. The vintage Pastor Tunde Bakare will always, be very, very explicit with his expression, actually. And he gave his reasons. His assessment of the river situation, his assessment of the National Assembly's handling of Senator Aputi Uduahan's allegations of sexual harassment by the Senate President. The President, handling, in fact, he called it a motor park kind of politics. And of course, he has said, paraphrasing what he said now, like he feels the National Assembly is more like the extension of the executive right now, because that fine line is no more there again. And I think this is not the first time, because many persons had their reservations under Lawan's leadership as well. I mean, Dr. Lawan, the former Senate President, under Buhari, where he said whatever he brings, whatever Buhari brings, he gets. And now one will say, is this a continuation as well? Because the way some of the leaders and the assembly have been pandering to whatever the executive brings. And talking about the response of the National Assembly, the spokesperson, Yemi Adaramudu of the Senate, said that there have been instances in which the National Assembly has disagreed with Mr. President. And Nigerians are calling him, can you please give us an instance?
And we are still waiting to hear that. And again, talking about Mr. President.
He even gave an example. He gave the example of, I think, the situation in Rivers. And he said the president disagreed. I mean, the National Assembly disagreed on some angles in the state of emergency rule. Nigerians say, excuse us.
Is he hallucinating? Talking about Mr. President now. Yeah. Let's talk about power now. Look at Mr. President. I think as Nigerians, we should be concerned about our responsibilities as a people, our belief system. Yes, people are blaming him, I mean, for degenerating into tyranny, or tyranny rather, for trying to grab power and all that, playing motopack politics. I ask again, have you seen Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, holding a machete or holding a gun and harassing people? The answer is no. All right. Did he force the National Assembly into supporting him? Did he coerce them? The answer is no. All right. Did he coerce the INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, to support him? No. So people should be responsible for their decisions and their actions.
We understand Mr. Ologun is back. Mr. Ologun, can you hear us?
Very well, I'm back.
All right. Sorry for that hitch. Actually, you are going to land on a thought, but Daniel was taking you on some questions. Yeah.
Yes, you were reacting to what I said, that Pastor Tunde Bakare accusing the president of degenerating into tyranny and, of course, motorbike politics. And I'm saying, we as Nigerians, we have not seen him, you know, personally handling machetes or guns or coercing people, harassing people, that we should be responsible for our own decisions. What's your concern here? Because if we say he's degenerating into tyranny, what's the kind of tyranny we are having? We have organizations who are supposed to check him. So why blame him? If one person is grabbing power, it simply means the others are the ones letting him grab power. And a lot of Nigerians will say, why are we in this situation when we have bodies who are supposed to check him? And I think you were trying to react to that when we lost connection at some point.
Well, I actually do not know where I left off because I just noticed I was practically talking to myself at some point. So let me try and do a recap. There is what we call coercion by influence. For students of leadership class, they will understand what I mean. That's what you call coercion by influence in leadership. And that means that when you have influence, through whatever means, legally, illegally, on someone, you seem to use that influence to coerce such an individual to do what he or she would ordinarily not do. And when Pastor Tunde Bakare was talking about describing leadership of Nigeria as a motorpark kind of politics, what is the kind of politics that they play in the motorparks? The kind of motorparks politics that they play is one where all power belongs to one man. I put it to you, have you ever heard that also person is the secretary or the vice chairman or the PRO or the account officer of the motorpark?
Yes.
No.
Sometimes you see them.
You only hear their name. You hardly do. The only person whose name is always in circulation, who is always receiving all the twirly, is the chairman of the motorpark or the NURTW, as the case may be. When we talk about NURTW today, now you are quick to remember MC Oluomo, but I ask you, who is the financial secretary of the PRO of the NURTW? You may have to Google search before that name comes to mind. That tells you the kind of politics that they play in motorpark is a game whereby only one man matters, the chairman. And that is what has been imported into our politics, where no other person seems to have influence or mind of his or her own to make decisions or to give orders, as the case may be. Everything has to come through the president. He uses what we call coercion by influence on everybody. And when you talk about politicians or galvanizing towards the APC, and you say, oh, nobody is holding gun to their head. Oh, the National Assembly were elected. How were they elected? Some of these National Assembly members, knowing fully well that they do not have immunity as former governors and what have you, are supposed to be facing queries and investigation by the ICPC and the FCC. But what you get is the presidency, under whom the ICPC and the EFCC, because for those who are listening to us, don't be deceived. The ICPC and the EFCC, as much as they tell you they're independent, they are under the presidency. So all of those politicians in the National Assembly, knowing fully well what their records are and what they should be dealing with, what they simply do is to hide under the influence of the president, who gives order clandestinely most of the time to these probe agencies not to touch those individuals. And don't forget what Shomole said, maybe Shomole, I think, or Erufai said, that the moment you join the ruling party, your sins are forgiven. Nobody touchlights you. So when they know that the reason why they are still members of the National Assembly is because they are not being touchlighted by the SEC and the ICPC and other agents of government, which is made possible by the presidency. Tell me how the man that has prevented you from being investigated and put in jail will not have influence through coercion on you. So does he need to put a gun to their head before he forces them to take a decision? How much has Akwabe been responsible? Do we not have record of how much he was accused of having stolen as governor of Akwa Ibom? How much has Chiomale been accused of stealing in Edo? We can go on and on. How many of them are facing prosecution now? Their cases are left off the hook because they are children of the president. They are members of the ruling party. And so once you get protected by the office of one man, you think just a man will not have influence by coercion on you? That is what Pastor Tunde Bakare is referring to when he says we are having a tyranny. Tyranny comes when only one man's word matters, when only one man's opinion matters. When only one man's wish must be fulfilled.
All right, Mr. Logun.
And that is what has become the politics of Nigeria.
Okay, you talked about coercion by influence. Thank you for giving that narrative. Coercion by influence, like you rightly said. So in that case, let's be objective now. Then we as a people, we should be concerned about ourselves, which means we have dirty politicians, we have dirty leaders who are simply dancing to the tune of the leader. So you can blame a leader for grabbing power. You can blame Tinubu for degenerating into tyranny simply because he is using his influence, coercion by influence, to control people, to influence them. It means we should look inwards. We too as a people should look inwards. When we have leaders who are corrupt, because if the president has nothing on you, why should you always dance to his tune? If the president has nothing on the National Assembly, why should there be a rubber stamp organization? If Mr. President, Mr. Ologun, I put it to you, if Mr. President does not have anything on the judiciary, he won't be able to control them. So what we have in Nigeria, I put it to you, is a bunch of corrupt leaders who have dirt, okay, who have skeletons in their cupboard, and they know that the president can use it against them. That is why he is controlling them. So let's not just look at the man who is at the helm of affairs, who has the power. How did he get the power, and how is he managing it? Simply because people have skeletons in their cupboard. If you, in their cupboard rather, if you as a person, Mr. Ologun, you get into a leadership position tomorrow, and you have dirt, they can use it against you. But if they have nothing against you, that's when you can be upright. That's when you can be accountable. And I think it still boils down to our system, our belief system, our moral standards as a people, as Nigerians. We are to blame ourselves for this. We got ourselves in this place in the first place. Don't you think so, Mr. Ologun?
I don't know how much of time we have, but let's put this on two tripods quickly. In the earlier part of your question, you talked about the people being responsible. And I'm sure if your heart is sad, you are likely going to hinge that on that popular saying that the people deserve the kind of leadership they get.
Absolutely.
But I will not try to blame the people, because how much of a choice does the people have? The politicians are so crafty in their dealings. So when they want to offer us options, they offer us option of the Red Sea, or what you call the Blue Sea, and the devil. So how many of these political parties have offered us credible alternatives? They have often offered us alternative of the two thieves on the two sides of the cross of Jesus Christ. They offer us the option of the Blue Sea or the devil. So eventually it does not matter what we choose as a people. We're still ending up choosing evil. So how much of such do you blame the people for? Sometimes people want to choose right, but they are often left with no option, because the political class are so crafty that even in offering you options as provided for by the Constitution or by the Electoral Act during election, they offer you the choice of the Blue Sea or the devil. So it does not matter which choice you make, you are still going to fall under their caprices. That is on one leg. On the other side, you talk about people having skeletons in their cupboard and becoming prey of influence to the president or whoever. The question is simple. When you have skeletons in your cupboard, if not that we have a compromised system, why should people that have skeletons in their cupboard find their way into political offices? I read a list of would-be ambassadors of Nigeria, and I shook my head because nothing seems to be changing. The same crop of politicians since 1999, I don't want to mention names so that I don't get sued, people that have questionable character, people that have been privileged to be ministers, to have been governors and what have you, and they have not left indelible marks as leaders. They are the same people that have been thrown up as would-be ambassadors of this country. But you know the interesting thing, before you get nominated or before you get appointed, they go through screening, the DSS, the FBI, and the rest of them. So the question would be, what are those investigating agencies looking for? That they seem to have lost track of the record of these individuals, the record of embezzlement that they have, the record of rape, in most cases that they have, the record of social denigration that they have, the record of killings that they have. All of a sudden, those records becomes wanting. They get claimed and cleared. But the same agency should be holding them by the people, and then they become anything they want to become. So when you say that the president is taking advantage of having something against people that is influencing, it is because we have a system that in itself has failed. We have a system in itself that is corrupt because they ordinarily should not have made it to the office that they are in if truly those agencies that are responsible for their screening have upheld the truth of integrity.
Thank you. Still so much to talk about in the State of the Nation broadcast, address rather, by Pastor Tunde Bakare. He has talked that the presidency has pushed back. The National Assembly have responded. We'll look into all of that and how these will pan out, especially for what really truly matters in this particular conversation. That is the Nigerian, average Nigerian. Go on this quick break right now. Please stay with us.